Based on a few comments and questions that I've had lately, I wanted to take the time to put together a video on getting started within Studio One 3 that's going to cover finding your way around and getting started with creating music right away. And I'm going to try to do this within a 20-minute time period. And this is basically for any beginners to Studio One 3, or if you're just beginning to work with digital audio workstations or DAWs, this is for you to help you get started and get your ideas out as quickly as possible. And if you notice here, Presonus actually has a Black Friday sale for 50% off all of the versions of Studio One 3. So there may be a lot of newcomers to the software, and this is for you. Now, I just want to go ahead and warn you that there's going to be a lot of annotations within this video. So as I'm briefly covering a topic, if you'd like to know more, then there will be a little annotation pop up somewhere on the screen here. So you can click that, and then that will take you to a tutorial that covers that particular topic more in depth. Now, with that, I'm going to go ahead and start my little stopwatch here and get started. All right, so this is what you're going to see when you first launch the program, the start page. And it's here that we can come to the create a new song. And then when we click this, we're going to get a little dialog here where we can choose from a variety of excuse me, presets that are included with Studio One 3. We can access presets by interface type, or this is where our own user presets are going to be saved here. This is going to be our song title. We can click there and name that wherever we'd like, whatever we want. Below that is where the location where it's going to be saved. We can click here and then choose a different location wherever we'd like. This is different settings for sample rate, resolution, bars, and so on. And take note of this location. This is going to be set in the options, and every time you create a song, it's going to go to that location unless you change it, as we saw here. And we set this up within the options. I'll cancel out of here. If I control comma or command comma on the Mac and come to locations, this right here is that default location. So you can click here and set up a new one. I'll cancel out. This is going to be a list of songs that we've been recently working on. We can actually pin these if we'd like it to stick around. And we can come here to create a new project for any mastering that we'd like to do. Open an existing document. And then what about sound? We need sound. So here we can, by default, Studio One 3 is going to set up a device here. If you'd like to configure that or change, we can come to configure audio device and then click this down arrow to choose a different audio device here. The control panel is going to give you access to more in-depth features and functionality of the audio device that you've selected. While we're in here, we can take a look at external devices, and here you can set up any keyboard controller that you have just by choosing add. And then here to the left we have a list of manufacturers, so if you click on one of these folders, your particular model may be here. You can select that and then configure that there. We've got MIDI channels. You can have them all on, take that off, or choose individual ones. I'm just going to choose all though. And you can set this to have it be the default instrument input whenever you create an instrument track. I'll go ahead and cancel out of here. Just know that you can access the options menu anytime by that control comma or command comma and access the options that way. I'll cancel out again. And where are we? We've got check for updates, about Studio One. Let's go ahead and create a new song and get started with how can we create music. I'm going to call this tutorial, and I'm going to change this to my desktop. Okay, and now we're taken to the song page. How can we get around here? There's a few areas to be aware of. First is our browser. Now the browser, we can access our instruments, effects, loops, files, the cloud, and our pool. And we'll go into this in a second a bit deeper. We can show or hide this by hitting F5 on our keyboard. If we want to access the editor, we can hit F2. F3 is going to take us to our mix console. And then F4, we can access our inspector over here to the left. I'll F4 and close that back out. And then let's F5 and bring up our browser again. The tabs here represent these. So instruments is this tab, effects, this tab, and so on. Now we can use hotkeys to access these tabs. If I F6, then we have our instruments. F7, our effects. F8 is loops. F9, files. F10 is the pool. I'll come back to F6 and let's bring in a mojito. And a track is created for this device. And I'll go ahead and if we hover there, we can expand that out. We also have controls here for changing the size. We have normal, medium, large, and so on. Now at this point we should be able to play this device, but it's not working on mine, and I believe that's because I added my external controller after I already started Studio One. So I'm going to Control comma and come to the options menu, come to the external devices. I'll select this, and as you can see we have a warning here because I did connect my keyboard after Studio One had already started. I'll reconnect, and this is helpful for you to see. Okay, okay. And now we're in business. Now we've got a power button for our VST instruments where we can deactivate that. We can choose our patches from here. We can close that out. If we'd like to reopen, we can click this icon there. If we would like to record, this is armed by default, so all I need to do is hit the asterisk on my keyboard. I'll press the space bar to stop, the decimal symbol on the numeric keypad to come back to the beginning, space bar to play back. And we have our MIDI data recorded. Now this is not audio, this is just kind of control to, it sends control information to this VST instrument. It says note on, play this note, which note, how hard to trigger the sound, excuse me, and so on. So it's not audio information, and we can actually edit this MIDI data by double clicking this MIDI part is what it's called, and these are the actual notes. You can see I actually fumbled and got an extra one in there. I'll double click on that to get rid of it. If I play back, now we have a better idea of what's going on here. We can click and drag those to change them. We can change the length, move them forward and back, select them as a group, move them all at once, and down below here we have velocity information, which is going to control basically the volume level, how hard or soft these are going to be triggered. And if you note here, these kind of adjust as you move to give you a visual representation here on what the velocity information is. We have this piano roll where we can audition notes, and I'll F2 and close that out. Now what if we want to record audio? We can press T on our keyboard and then choose the type here. We'll choose an audio track. We can name it. I'll call it track 1, and then we can choose a color for this if my mouse will work. Oh, we've got auto color selected, so I'll deselect that. Come here and then choose the color. We can choose the format, whether we want mono or stereo. I'll leave that on mono and then click OK. And I had 2 selected, so now we have 2 tracks. If I press T again, you can see we had audio. Below that, the count, we had 2. If I only want 1, I'll hold down Shift while pressing T. Be sure that you select which one you want to remove. Shift T takes that out of there. We can then press this record to arm that, and then I'll hit the decimal on my numeric keypad to come back to the beginning. And actually I want to mute this instrument track that we created. You can mute or solo here. And I want to disarm this. I don't want to record that. I'll press the asterisk on the keyboard, and then we are now recording here. Because I'm doing screen capture, I don't have my audio device set up to record audio at the moment, but that's how you do it if you've already taken care of setting up your audio device. Now, we could also double click on this item and open up the editor and perform some editing here as well. I'll F2 and close that out. If you ever want to manipulate the audio, slice it up, we can press this bend tool here and then come in and chop this up if there was actually audio recorded. There isn't, so that's why we're not, why it's not chopping that up. We also have a split tool that we can use to chop up our audio event. By default, we have the smart arrow tool. So if we hover at the top of an audio event or MIDI part, then we have the range tool. So we can select different ranges. If we come to the bottom, think of this as a center line up top here. As I move above or below that center line, it changes. So here we can have the arrow tool to select. If we don't want that, we can deselect and we just have the arrow tool whether we're above or below. I'll go ahead and turn that back on. If we press 1, that's how we access that. If I press 2, we access the range tool, 3, the split tool, 4, the erase tool, 5 is the paint tool, and if I continue to press 5, we change from the different types that are available. If I click this arrow, we can see what those are changing to. Now, 6 is our mute tool, 7, the bend tool, 8, listen tool, and then here we have on a question mark. We can turn this on to show different helpful tips whenever we're moving around within Studio One. And I'll go ahead and turn that off. Next we have a audio bend panel, strip silence, our quantize panel, and then we have something for working with macros. Next here we have our quantize settings. Here you can choose your quantize value. I'm at 16th notes right now. We can just click that down arrow to change. I can change to quarter notes, and if you notice the grid's going to change below as well as the ruler. I'll change that. Now we're on quarter notes. What does this mean? I'll press 1 and bring up the smart arrow tool. If we have snap to grid engaged, which is here, we can click to activate that or press N on our keyboard to turn it on and off. This is going to snap our events within our arrange view. You can see that that jumps, and it's based on quarter notes, so we're snapping to quarter notes. And we can change this. If I change this to half a bar, then it's going to jump by half a bar. If I were to press N and turn this snap to grid off, then I can move this wherever I'd like. I'll press N and turn that back on and snap that back. If I double click on this MIDI part and come to our MIDI individual MIDI notes, then you can see these will snap as well. That's by bar. If I change this to quarter, you can see that these snapped into place. Then we have an area where we can change the ruler here to bars, seconds, samples, and so on. I'll go ahead and come back to bars. And I want to F2 and close out the editor. Now we can also click in this ruler and click and hold and drag down to expand out, drag up while still holding to zoom out, down to zoom in. We can also press W on our keyboard to zoom out, or E to zoom in. If we are in the track column here, we can hold down Shift and make that larger, or Shift and E to expand that out, or Shift and W to shrink it back down. Now, if we would like to apply an effect to this that we've recorded, this MIDI part that we've recorded, and I've got that muted, let's unmute that. And actually, I'm going to select all of these and delete them out. And we'll play back. And we can come to our effects. And remember, we can access that by F7. And I'll drag in an analog delay and just place that on the track. And then now when we play back, we now have delay on our MIDI part that we've recorded. Now, as we saw with choosing patches within the VST instrument that we brought in, we can come to here and choose patches that come with Presonus as it is. And these can be a great start for coming in and tweaking your own. Start with a default patch and then come in and adjust the settings. And in that way you can learn more about how the effects, the different effects work. Now let's come back to the console, the mixer, and I'm going to close out the browser actually as well by hitting F5, F3 to bring up this console. A few things about the console. You can differentiate your audio and instrument tracks by these icons here. So this represents our instrument tracks, this represents our audio tracks. If I right click, we can create a bus channel, and by default these panels open up so you can add inserts and sends. If you'd like to close that, we click that arrow there. If we would like to add effects or sends to our audio, we can click on that arrow and those are available there. We can do this the same with our instrument channels. I'll go ahead and close that out. So we can differentiate with these icons. That's the audio, instrument channels. This is bus channels. If I right click, we can add an effects channel. This is basically the same thing as an effects send. I'll close out that panel and we can see we have that effects icon there to show what we're working with. Above here we can choose an input, we can choose an output. We could send this to the bus, for instance. We've got our level, pan. We can enter numeric values for these if we'd like. If we've made an adjustment, we can control click to return that back as it was. The same with our panning, control click to take that back to center. With the console, we can hide and show different panels. We can show an external panel for our external devices like MIDI controllers. We have a trash bin for things that we've removed from the console, our outputs, inputs from our hardware interface. We can make this a larger view with our inserts and sends above the channels. We can disable that. We can have a narrow view or expand that out. Down below here we have control for automation, and we can actually add different parameters by clicking there. I'll close that out. At the very bottom we have our transport controls. To the left here we have a CPU meter. We have a disk performance meter. If I click on performance, then we can see the information displayed here, and we can actually show the individual devices that we're using. You can see our Mojito VST instrument and what's going on with it. This instrument is showing by default any instruments that we have open. This is our Mojito, and we can actually double click on that and access it that way. We can hide that as well. We can also hide this channel list by clicking this icon there. We can hide or show our various channels. This is our audio channel. We can hide that. Any audio channels that are within the console. We can hide our instrument channels. We can hide our effects. We can hide our buses. and it looks like I'm nearing about 1 minute left here. So let's talk about the transport. Come back to here. For we click the sample rate, then we can open up the song setup, change our sample rate. We can also click the options to come back to this options menu, or we can configure external, our audio setup, and general settings. We then have a readout for where our song position cursor is, standard transport controls. If we'd like to set up a loop, we can control click on the ruler. Hold down control while you click there to set the right locator. Hold down alt to set the left locator. We can then hit the / on our keyboard to turn the loop on. You can see that this is now blue. If I hit that / again, it's off. This is the icon for turning that on and off. We have indicators for our left and right loop locator positions, settings for recording our MIDI data, our metronome. We can control different settings there. We have a level for our master out. You can see that these correspond. I'll control click to take that back to 0 dB, and we can change the output to mono or stereo with this icon here. We have a video player here. We can change from our different songs by using this drop down there. And I think we are about out of time. So I'm going to F3 and close out the mixer. We can also expand and zoom in and zoom out using this icon here. And I think we are out of time here. I think I did pretty good with covering everything that I wanted to. I'm sure as I'm editing, there's going to be some things that I missed and wish that I covered, but I think that's a good start for 20 minutes. So I hope that if you're new to Studio One 3, you feel a bit better about getting started. Go ahead and watch it again. You know, I was running through there pretty quickly, so you can check it out again. Remember to click the annotations if there's a topic that I was covering that you want to learn more about in depth. And if you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment below. And I think we'll wrap up here. Thanks for watching.